Hi, it's Mike with AskTractorMike.com. I'm going to have a little fun today to ask you if you know what this part is. It fell off a piece of equipment. And I'll tell you a story about it and how it illustrates how we need to be doing maintenance on our tractors. And here's the part. You know what that is? And more importantly, do you know what it came off of? I'll tell you what it is here in a minute. I know what it came off of. It's a little scary. I knew exactly what it was when I looked at it. Here's a closer shot of it. But I didn't know what it came off of. I thought I knew, but when I did a little more research, I didn't know what it came off of. Well, let's talk about why I've got this part today. My mother-in-law and her husband, who's passed away now about a year ago, lived on a farm. And she's still on the farm, but she's in the process of downsizing. And so my daughter was up helping her, and my daughter was walking across her driveway and found this laying there, picked it up, put it in her car, meant to tell my mother-in-law about it and forgot about it. She brought it home. And so my wife found it in the console of her car and said, "What is that?" And she said, "Well, I don't know. I found it in Grandma's driveway." And she brought it in, and I looked at it, and I'm like, "Well, I think I know what it is. I don't know what it came off of, but I have a sneaking suspicion of what it came off of," but I was wrong. So anyway, it gives me a chance to talk today about a maintenance practice that if you're new to tractors, you may not know you need to do, and it's really important. And the piece of equipment that this came off of, the person that owned it was not doing that maintenance, and obviously it caused a problem. So there are a lot of pieces and parts on a tractor that can vibrate loose over time. And maybe they were never tight from the factory, and we'll talk about that a little bit today as well. But there's several bolts on a tractor that on a regular basis you need to be checking to make sure they're tight. And a tractor is in kind of a hostile environment. It goes across rough fields and it's bouncing, there's lots of vibration. And because of that, you can have bolts that slowly loosen up over time, and they can have catastrophic results. The ones that I've seen fail are the ones that hold your front end loader on, and there's probably anywhere from 8 to 10 or 12 bolts that hold your front end loader on. And on an annual basis, you need to be checking with your torque wrench to make sure those are tight, because I've seen them loosen up and eventually everything starts moving around and pretty soon it shears all the bolts off. And it can be a very expensive fix, usually not so much in the parts, but in the labor to get the parts replaced. So the first place you want to check on an annual basis is your front end loader bolts. Are they tight? And I do this every year on all these bolts when I'm tuning up my tractor in the spring. And more than once a year is even better, because I almost always find one bolt on those loader brackets that has worked its way loose, and I'll tighten it back up again and torque all the ones to the proper torque settings. The second set of bolts you need to check are your tires and wheels. Your front tires on a tractor will usually be either lug studs that come out with lug nuts that go on them, or bolts that bolt in to hold the front tire and wheel on the tractor. Front tire will have a set of bolts or studs there that need to be checked, the nuts for tightness. The back tire will have those. And also, if you've got a tractor where you can adjust the tread widths, they'll have another set of bolts that you may forget about. And what happens with your back tire, a lot of tractors have a rim that connects to a center section that's bolted on. And the reason they do that is if you've got that, there's various tread widths that you can adjust your tractor to. All of the big tractors have this, and a lot of the smaller tractors do as well. But there'll be a set of bolts that hold the center section to the rim, and you got to check the torque on them as well. And I've told this story several times on my YouTube channel. I was at a tractor introduction one year, and I was driving it was either a 105 or 130 horsepower tractor around at this product introduction, and all of a sudden a service guy's waving his arms telling me to stop, and he's holding a big nut, and I'm like, where'd that come from? And I stopped the tractor, got out. He said, well, it's from the center section to the rim. And this tractor, obviously, they hadn't gotten them tight at the factory, and they were falling off. And there were two bolts holding this big tractor's center section to the rim. I was about to lose the back wheel off the tractor and fall to the ground. And they stopped me, and they gathered up all these nuts and bolts around the parking lot and put them back together and torqued them right before they let anybody drive that tractor again. But that hadn't been torqued at the factory, and nobody caught it. The next set of bolts that you need to check are your drawbar bolts. If you're pulling a bat wing cutter around or any kind of implement that you pull with your drawbar, over time those bolts can work loose. And so get under the tractor, they're a little hard to get to, and torque those down to make sure they're tight. The next set of bolts you need to check on a regular basis are your roll bar bolts if you've got a non-cab tractor. The roll bar is held on with bolts just like everything else is we're talking about here, and they can work loose with vibration over time. And that's a safety hazard. If you keep your seat belt on and your roll bar in the upright position and you roll the tractor over, there's a great chance you'll survive. If anything fails in that system, and loose bolts could cause that, could end badly. So check those. Finally, if you've got an implement behind the tractor with bolts on it, you need to check those as well. I've personally seen a brush hog where the bolts worked loose that held the gearbox to the deck, and that did not end well. So check those bolts, and then check the bolts that hold the frame to the deck, because they can work loose over time as well. Now, did you guess what this is? Well, I did. It's a lug stud. It's a stud that holds wheel on a fairly good sized piece of equipment. And I thought it was a lug stud that had come loose, and it's got the lug nut on it still from a big tractor or a combine. But what it actually is, and the way I found this out is, you know, most parts have a number stamped on them. First off, it says 450 to 500 foot-pounds. That's how much this is supposed to be torqued. So this, you know, is an important lug stud and lug nut, but it's got a number on it, and I read it, and it's 39874. And I went to the internet and I Googled this, and the first thing that came up is what this is. This is a lug stud and lug nut for a Class 8, 33,000 pound plus semi-truck. So how did that get in my mother-in-law's driveway? Well, she rents her farm out, and when they cut the crop, they have grain trucks coming in and out. And I suspect this fell off a grain truck. So there's a big semi-truck, grain truck, running around Hawk Point, Troy, Missouri, missing a lug bolt. And that's not good. That could, if the other bolts are like this one was, and you can see how that's wallered out there, where that's been doing that while it was coming off. There's some pressure there. That's not good. It's a safety hazard. Whoever owns the truck that this came off of needs to be doing maintenance, and they're not doing it. So, gave me a chance to talk about maintenance today. Keep the bolts tight on your tractor and check them every year at least. Now, I hate to admit this, but sometimes these bolts are not tight either from the factory or from your dealer. And the sad fact of the matter is, when the dealer's busy in the heat of battle in the spring, when he's selling lots of tractors, he's supposed to be prepping those tractors for delivery, and usually there's a checklist, and I've got one in my owner's manual, of things to check to make sure they're ready before the dealer delivers the tractor. Now, he normally doesn't have his #1 technician prepping your tractor for delivery. And sometimes when he's busy, he'll have his high school kid that he's hired part-time over the summer prep your tractor. And if the high school kid's good, he'll cover everything on the list. But if he's wanting to take a nap, he can check all of the things on the list, crawl under the tractor and take a nice long nap and not do the prep work. And that happens more than it should. So if you're taking delivery of a new tractor, or you've just taken delivery of a new tractor, there's a bunch of things that I highly recommend you check so you don't have conflict with a dealer. If one of these things goes wrong, it could lead to a big failure, and there'd be an argument over who pays for the repair, and we don't want that. And I did a video on that a few years ago, and if you've taken delivery of a new tractor recently, or you're about to buy a new tractor, or take delivery of a tractor, I highly urge you to watch the video. Here's a link right here. Here's another video you might want to watch. Here's a link to a place to subscribe to my YouTube channel, which really helps me out. And here's a place to go to my website, where I sell cool things for the tractor owner, help support my channel. Thanks for watching.